Hello, my Android followers, and welcome to Android Weekly. No, don't do that? Okay. Hey guys, welcome to Android Weekly in this Halloween edition. We're trying something different and spooky like. No, don't do that either? Okay. Alright, so let's get right down to the articles, guys. This is RSEKY, the Android guy. And the first article we have today is, I'm going to put this on the rumor mill because I would find it very hard to believe that they would bring this up. So, multi-window mode might land on the Galaxy S3 in December. Now, the reason why that's really big, that if it does happen, is because that's one of the main features on the Note 2 that's just amazing. The Note 2 is going to have a multi-window mode. Now, it's not available in the US yet. It's been available in some international markets, but it's really interesting because basically you can do two apps at the same time, and that's really big. But it's almost all the apps you would want to use it for. YouTube, Gmail, Google Maps, all these different ones that are Google-based, that Android generally comes with, you can actually do in multi-view, besides all of Samsung's own apps, such as their email app, S-Note, and pretty much any of their apps will work on it as well. So that's the big thing, is that you can actually do two apps at the same time that are very useful. So that's really interesting to see how that'll come out when it's on the Note 2, but also when it gets on the S3, if it does, how would it look and how would it be? I mean, that is definitely multitasking at its truest form, and no other phone has come close to doing something like this. So it's pretty cool if it does have that. Alright guys, so we all know that the Nexus 4 was recently announced, and one thing that we have not found out yet is that if it's only going to come in black. Obviously the ones that were announced were only in black, but there is still another rumor that based on computer screens and certain vendors and sellers, that it would also come in white. So this is pretty interesting to see if it does come in white. If it does, I think it'll really look cool. But we'll have to wait and see till as it develops. Alright, as we talked about last week, Apple lost their huge suit against Samsung because half of their entire dispute was based on the patent of bouncing. Basically, that was considered invalid in the US. So when you use your browser and move all the way up, it bounces. That was considered invalid in the US, and that was half of their court case. So, of course, that will develop more on December 6th when the court reconvenes, but obviously that will be now taken into account since that was 50% of their win. Also, in the Dutch court, Samsung did not infringe on the multi-touch patent that Apple owns as well. So, I mean, worldwide you can kind of see that Apple's just losing pretty much every battle they're trying to just pick on other manufacturers simply because they don't have an answer for what's been going on. That is that Samsung is now dominating the market in terms of smartphones. The iPhone 5 was a joke in sales compared to the S3. So it's really interesting to see how this will continue and what next course of action Apple's going to take. Speaking of their course of action, they actually did something really interesting. They let two of their main people go as of today. One who worked on a lot of the designing as well as interface for things from Siri to Apple Maps, and another one who had responsibilities over iOS and OS X. So it's really interesting to see the lengths Apple's going to kind of change things around, shake things up, and I think they need to. I mean, they're kind of stagnant at this point. They've been coming out with the same stuff, nothing really innovative or nothing really different or new at this point. So they kind of need to do something. I mean, they're following now, which is not normally their style. I mean, they came out with the 7.9-inch tablet, which there's been 8-inch tablets as far back as 3 years. So it's really interesting to see them kind of following now instead of trying to do their own thing, which is what made them successful to begin with. So it's interesting to see how they'll keep continuing with this. Recent polls show how much storage do you actually have on your phone, and what was interesting is more than I believe it was 80, yes, more than 80% of people say that they have more 16 gigs plus in their phone. Not only that, but more than 50% say they need more than 16 gigs. So this is kind of interesting just because I think manufacturers don't take this into account enough. One thing that I've seen, especially on the prepaid market, is lack of built-in storage. Now, manufacturers have been doing pretty well to keep 8 to 16 gig storage built in for pretty much all phones on the postpaid side, contract phone side. But it's just something that's missing a lot. Personally, I think it should start at 16 gig. I think 8 gig is a little bit too small. And I think it will run a lot better at least 16. For a user like me, I am definitely one of those that need 32, which over 40% needed 32 or more. And I'm definitely one of those people. Also, in more news, Samsung has kicked off their wireless charging module. Now, we've seen a leak of this, and basically it's a wireless charging unit that is supposed to be, there was one, of course, for the S3 that has been not really massively released, but this one is supposed to be 40% thinner than the original one that was seen, and it's expected that they're working on it as a prototype to further go onto the S series. So any new S, from probably the S3 to the Note 2 to future S4, that it will use these wireless chargers. Pretty nice. I think wireless charging is the future. We've seen it now on the Nexus 4. That was another thing that we saw recently that has a wireless charger. So I think wireless chargers are going to become more and more popular as the years go on. On other news, actually, Android has caught up entirely to iOS, having 700,000 apps each. So it looks like before the end of the year, guys, that Android will now have more apps than iOS. It's been a long time, and that was Apple's claim to fame. We have more apps than anyone, and they were losing the battle. I mean, the numbers in terms of how quickly developers made apps for Apple versus Android was just amazing, because Android just gets more developers hand over fist. So it's really interesting to see how it's gone so quickly up. And of course there is a third person in that, and that is Windows. Windows hit their 120,000 apps. So they're moving. They're not moving as quickly as they would like. Gameloft is one of the new backers of it, so they just released 8 games finally for Windows 8 phones. So they're finally getting some of the apps that everyone has been asking for. Still far in between in comparison, though. There's no doubt about that. And one of the most interesting things that I have definitely been interested in is we have seen a Galaxy Note just hit DLNA certification. And when it did this, it had something very interesting. And that was, it was an N5000 series, which is really interesting. So let me give you guys an example. The N series usually stands for Note, and the 10-inch tablets were on the N8000. The 5-inch tablet was an N7000, and before that it was an N3000. So what's really interesting is that this certification is for a 5000. Now, this has led to some speculation of a possible Galaxy Tab 7.7, which, as you guys know, was my suggestion for Samsung to do, that I thought they should bring out a 7.7 Note tablet. I thought that would really be, really go well all together. We know that they have the capability to make it an AMOLED screen as well, and so it would be really good, and especially since considered the iPad mini, I think it would be a great rival for it. The other thing this could be is, you know, that long ago there was the rumor that Samsung would release a 5.8-inch MP3 player to the US. So that's another possibility. What if there's just an MP3 player that's going to be that size with a Note? So these are both two possibilities. I'm really curious to see what this ends up being, but it is a DLNA certification for a Galaxy Note device, and it's under 5,100. So. And speaking of future Note and Galaxy devices, currently Samsung is already getting started on working on fine-tuning the processing chip that is expected to be for the S4. Now the S4, I've told people already, look, if you're expecting it, it won't be probably till May, probably. They always release it before the summer generally. But the interesting thing is that they're already working on a quad-core Exynos 5450. This is based on the A15 chip, which, if you haven't seen my other videos, the A9 chip is the current holder of all processing chips, with the exception of the new Nexus 10, which is why that one's so big, is because it's going to have under the new architecture, it really just moves a lot quicker. So in terms of having this, it's really going to be good because this will be a quad-core device with these kind of things. So it's going to be able to move a lot quicker in comparison to everything out, basically double the speeds of everything we have out right now. Which, of course, if we're going to have an S4 next year, then that would be nothing less than expected at this point. Samsung has completely dominated the cell phone market, almost selling just as many iPhones total with just Galaxy S3s in comparison. So we're definitely seeing the tide turn and Samsung dominating the market. And the other rumor with this device, of course, just so you guys know, is it's supposedly going to be a 5-inch, which isn't a stretch from the 4.8 on the S3 right now, but it will have a 1080p display, which we have not seen yet on a global phone. So this would be really interesting if it is true. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask, and let me know, which Nexus device are you planning on getting? Obviously, if you haven't seen the videos on the Nexus series that I did just the other day, check it out and see what the latest news on the Nexus devices, and if you plan on getting one. Alright everyone, thank you for watching Android Weekly. This has been RICKY, the Android Guy.